It was a long time ago when I started covering environment for the Sun, which was about 1973. Uh, One day I just went up to the Pratt Library and they had a Maryland section. I just ended up spending several afternoons on the Sun's time in the Maryland room at the Pratt, uh, picking through just books that were related to the Bay. That's where I came across Gilbert Byron's poetry and Rivers of the Eastern Shore, which I don't think I was aware of that book growing up or in high school. I just sat there and I did consider it actual work. If I was going to cover the Bay for the Baltimore Sun, there'd been a few people writing about the Bay before me. So half the rivers I kind of knew or parts of from growing up. So it was a great discovery. I mean, it's one of those books that should always stay in print. I mean, is it dated? Of course it's dated. It's a period piece, but it's wonderfully written. Like I say, I can go up the Chop Tank or the Transquaking or the Blackwater or you name the river now, and yeah, we know lots more about the rivers ecologically and so forth, but it's a great traveling companion. If you're gonna take a river trip, read that. It's historical, it's conversational, it just gives you a sense of life along those rivers. Things have changed, but there's Snow Hill is still Snow Hill. I mean, Pocomoke is still Pocomoke. A lot of those little towns, some of them aren't what they were in Footner's day, but they haven't changed radically for the most part. And of course, even in Footner's day, things still moved more on the water. That's become less and less. I mean, even when I was a kid, the Victor Lynn and the Clio, they were river boats, brought freight and commerce and people up the Wycomico River in Salisbury, and that's pretty much gone. Lots of boats on the water, but the kind you launch at a launch ramp and pull out on a trailer or sail out of Annapolis for a day or two. I'd have them read that before Chesapeake. I mean, I think Michener was a good storyteller. Chesapeake's a pretty cool book, but I think I'd send them to Rivers before Chesapeake. Look, I teach with a lot of younger profs at Salisbury in environmental studies, and they're coming out of backgrounds like environmental justice that you couldn't even get a PhD in that when I was coming up, and it's time that happened. But sure, I could see someone younger today saying, well, he didn't pay nearly enough attention to the Native American heritage. He didn't pay enough attention to the communities of color which existed, and all of that is true. Although, frankly, no one had pulled together a lot of that information back in his day either. I mean, that would have taken and still takes more research than it ought to. Some books written back in Footner's day would be downright unpublishable now, and you could argue whether they should be regarded as historical pieces and published. But Rivers, fortunately, doesn't fall into that category as far as I can tell. When you think about the Eastern Shore and more broadly Delmarva, I mean, what is it without its rivers? I mean, if it had beaches, yeah, that's an important part of it, although a rather small part land-wise. But the rivers, I mean, it's the Eastern Shore without those rivers would be, probably. Well, I always loved the Baltimore Sun. I hope they still do, but all of my time there, the Eastern Shore was uppercase, Western Shore lowercase, as it should be, by God, And they didn't do that by accident. And I think that was because a lot of the old Sun types, they crabbed and fished on the Eastern Shore and shot ducks and boated, and they thought it was a special place. And the rivers are a huge part of what makes it special. I think one other thing that just personally pleased me about Rivers is he didn't just do the biggies like the Chop Tank and the Chester. he went out on the transquaking, I mean, and complained about the bugs just as you will if you go today. You know, and nobody, that may be the only chapter in existence in a book anywhere in the world on the transquaking river. It's just, there's just a marsh river. There's nothing there. I go out on it all the time, but even I have never devoted that much space to it. So I gotta love him for that. Those Dorchester County marsh rivers. I mean, any book is work, but the trick is to make it look like you're not sweating, you know, and but you really feel like, Christ, I wish I was with him.